What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today is March 4th of 2022. Now, as I was in YouTube jail last week when this all started happening, I wasn't able to make a video here on YouTube, but I would like to tap into some of the more basics of the numerology involving what's going on right now over in Ukraine. Of course, on February 24th, Vladimir Putin and his Russian army invaded Ukraine. We saw multiple explosions around the city. We see miles and miles of Russian convoys parked outside of Kiev, some skirmishes around the country. But, of course, something is very odd about this war. And perhaps the strangest thing of all is this guy, Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, who rose to power not through a career in politics or as a popular athlete, but actually as an actor, a role which I would argue he is carrying over into his role as president of Ukraine. So as with anything in the mainstream media and world geopolitics, there's a lot of theater involved. Of course, it does appear that some people are getting shelled, hurt, killed. That part's real, but we'll talk about why it's all happening this year in this video. And we'll also look at the numerology of Vladimir Putin, of course, the main bad guy here in this entire story. So let's start with Putin and his age on the date of this invasion. Now, in the language of Gematria and what we call the Pythagorean or reduction method, this takes every double-digit letter in the alphabetic order and reduces it down to a single digit prior to adding it to the equation. Many argue that this is the most significant cipher in Gematria and all of numerology. Well, in that method, the name Vladimir Putin sums to 69 in reduction. And this is the same value as World War III, also 69. And on the date of the invasion, Vladimir Putin was 69 years and a span of 141 days old. Now, in the alphabetic order, where we don't use reduction, so J is assigned 10, K is 11, all the way through Z is 26, World War III has a value of 141. Now, there's a couple of ways that you could write this out, the other one being World War III with the number instead of the Roman numerals. Notice here how World War III sums to 117 in this same ordinal cipher. Well, if you look at how old Vladimir fumbling over this name for some reason, Vladimir Putin was on the date of the invasion. Oh, my mistake. We already looked at his age. We're looking at how long he's been in office. May 7th of 2012. You get 117 months and even 17 days on top of that. Speaking of Putin's birthday, October 7th, written 10/7, which in numerology looks a lot like the number 107. Notice how this year, it's still been 107 years since the First World War. Remember, Archduke Franz Ferdinand assassinated in June of 1914, the event which is commonly said to trigger World War I. Now, one thing I noticed about the invasion that I thought was really strange right off the bat is how we had this Russian convoy, a lot of trucks that were driving through Ukraine had the letter Z painted on them. And I thought, I've never seen this letter in the Russian alphabet. So I double-checked, and sure enough, there is no letter that looks like this in Russian. And again, this is a Russian convoy. Now, when you look at the letter Z in the Russian alphabet, notice how it looks identical to how the number 3 is written in Latin script. And this is pretty strange considering how well Putin's numerology is lined up with World War III. Now, you may recall back in the year 2013, there was a film called World War Z, and it instantly dawned on me that the release of this film must be connected to what's going on right now in Ukraine. And when you read up on this film, you find out that, sure enough, World War Z kicked off the Moscow Film Festival in 2013. Notice how World War III and World War Z even have the same gematria with capital letters taken into account. 277 here is the 59th prime number. The film was shown at the Moscow Film Festival on a date with numerology of 59. The film festival even founded in the year 59. But there's a lot more to this riddle with the letter Z and World War. The main actor of this film is Brad Pitt, and it's not uncommon at all for Brad Pitt to be in the news. However, at the time of the invasion into Ukraine, he was in the headlines for a pretty big story where he was suing his fiancée, Angelina Jolie, whom he was with at the time of this film. Notice how the word lawsuit has matching gematria with both Pearl Harbor and World War. And we're talking about Pearl Harbor here because just like Vladimir Putin's birthday, Pearl Harbor occurred on the 7th of the month, December 7th, 1941. Now, when you measure from the attack on Pearl Harbor to the birth of Vladimir Putin, you get exactly 130 months. And again, World War Z was released in the year 13. The film was even shown at the festival 13 months and 13 days after the date that Putin took office. And in the reverse alphabetic order, World War Z has gematria of 103. The Pearl Harbor riddles go even deeper. According to the White House, President Biden had a phone call with Vladimir Putin about escalating tensions in Ukraine. This occurred back on the date December 7th, which again was the anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Now consider how the attack on Pearl Harbor had numerology of 79, 12 plus 7 plus 19 plus 41. Well, 79 is a prime number, the 22nd, and here we are now in the year 22. If you measure from the date of this phone call on the anniversary of Pearl Harbor to the date of the attack on Ukraine, you get 79 days. And in our standard alphabetic order, the country of Ukraine sums to 79. If you include the end date with this 79-day measurement, you get 80 days. Now think about this. This means that Putin invaded Ukraine a span of exactly 80 years and 80 days after Pearl Harbor. And in the alphabetic order, his name, Putin, sums to 80. For some more alignments here, Putin's date of birth in 1952 had numerology of 88. And notice how his name Vladimir equals 88, which syncs up with the word beast. The name Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin sums to the same as 603 in ordinal and the Kabbalah ciphers. Putin took office on May 7th, or 5-7. That's the reduction value of 666 and triple sixes. Also a big number connected to the moon. And this will link us back up to the movie World War Z. So the word moon equals 57, and it has a 57-degree range of declination. The moon is an average of 238,000 miles from the Earth. Something I should have put in this post. And the date May 7th leaves 238 days in the year. And notice how both World War III and 666 have matching 238 Gematria in our Jewish or Latin cipher. Putin became the president 238 days after the anniversary of the book World War Z being published. There's a lot more 666 connections here. Actor Brad Pitt, his full name in Gematria, William Bradley Pitt, equals 211 and 275. When you write out 666, it's 211 and 275. World War Z, also 2075 in English. But this goes with anything with Putin. There's always a heavy 666 riddle. You know, this guy playing the role of the beast, the enemy in the media. And I'm not saying he's a good guy. I'd be surprised if he was. But everyone's playing their role on the world stage. No doubt about it. And perhaps this couldn't be more clear than it is in the case with Volodymyr Zelensky, who for several years prior to becoming the actual president of Ukraine, played the president of Ukraine on a television series called Servant of the People. And this show was so popular that he ended up creating a political party with the same name, Servant of the People. And this just goes to show you how theatrical everything is. And just watching the coverage of the war and how Zelensky and former presidents are acting, if you're under siege, would you really be standing out in the middle of the streets showing the enemy where you are? Again, something very odd about this whole war and how it's being presented. But, of course, that's the idea, to keep everyone confused and conflicted about what's happening. So the riddle behind Volodymyr Zelensky appears to be connected to the Society of Jesus, and I think this is a very clear one. Now, let's quickly talk about what's going on with the Jesuit order right now. Notice how from May 2021 through July of 2022, which is the current period of time that we're in, the Jesuit order is celebrating what's called the Ignatian Year. And the Ignatian Year is named after Ignatius of Loyola, who is the founder of the Jesuit order. Now, the reason that this Ignatian Year begins on May 20th is because May 20th is the date that St. Ignatius was wounded in battle. So now here we have a major war in the media during the Ignatian Year, which exists because this man was wounded during a war. And again, the date is May 20th. And as you see, May 20th, 1521, over 500 years ago, is the date that Ignatius was wounded. Well, it just so happens that Volodymyr Zelensky assumed office on the date May 20th, back in 2019. And the year 2019 really stands out here because if you subtract 2019 by 1556, which is the year that Ignatius of Loyola passed away, you end up with a remainder of 463. And in the standard alphabetic order in English, Volodymyr Zelensky's full name sums to 463. Zelensky was the winner of the 2019 Ukrainian election, and what I found is that elections in Ukraine for the president are held on wildly different dates every time. And the election that Zelensky won was held on April 21st, which is the date written 421. Notice how Zelensky was born 421 years after St. Ignatius of Loyola. On top of that, the date that Zelensky was sworn in had primary numerology of 64, and St. Ignatius was 64 years old when he passed away. What about in the language of Gematria? Now, in the Ukrainian alphabet, if you write out the nation of Ukraine, you actually get a Gematria sum of 93. And this also syncs up with the president of Ukraine. Notice how Volodymyr Zelensky equals 93 in reduction, just like president of Ukraine, the role that he's currently playing. This is identical to the gematria of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, whose name also sums to 93. But check this out. In reverse, Saint Ignatius of Loyola equals 303 and 123. Zelensky's birth numerology, 125 of 1978, 123, and 33, the same numbers found in the values of St. Ignatius of Loyola. But we're not done here. What I want to point out is how the Society of Jesus was officially established on September 27th, formally anyway. And September 27th is the date that leaves 95 days in the year. This is a significant number to the Jesuit order. It's also the reduction sum of 666, a number we discussed earlier a little bit. If you measure from St. Ignatius' birthday to the birthday of Volodymyr Zelensky, you get a span of 95 days. But what makes this connection so strong is that the studio that Volodymyr Zelensky is the founder of literally has the number 95 right there in it. Kvartal 95 Studio. This is what originally produced the series that launched him into fame, which caused him to become the president. Now, using capital letters, Kvartal 95 sums to 264. And this jumps out because St. Ignatius of Loyola sums to 264 in the alphabetic order. And we showed how these other three numbers are already coded into Zelensky. But this 264 is big for another reason. The show that this man was in was called Servant of the People, which has a reverse value of 264. And the date that this show debuted on television, October 16th, falls exactly 264 days after Volodymyr Zelensky's birthday. In this reverse method, the name Zelensky also equals 101. That show's premiere was also 101 days before Zelensky's birthday. Of course, there's more to this riddle, right? Think about this. The show is called Servant of the People. We have a lead character who is remarkably synced up with Ignatius of Loyola. Ignatius was once called the servant of the court, and the Jesuits revere this man as being one of the most significant servants of Jesus. Now notice how the word servant has Jewish gematria of 1016. That's interesting because the show, Servant of the People, debuted on October 16th, written 1016. However, in Ukraine, this date is typically written 16/10, the 16th of October. And in the square number cipher, the name Ignatius equals 1610. There's even more to this because 264 days is also 8 months and 3 weeks. And that's the reduction gematria of Volodymyr Zelensky in Russian. Also, his character's name on the show, using the S exception, 83. Now, 83 is a prime number, the 23rd prime number. This seems to be a big number to Zelensky, whose studio was founded in the year 2003. This is the same year he got married as well. He has birth numerology of 23. Invasion of Ukraine equals 203. But this is where it gets really strange. If you check Zelensky's age on the date that his country was invaded, you find that he was exactly 529 months old. And this whole time we're talking about how this is a riddle connected to the Jesuit order. Notice how Jesuit order sums to 529 in Satanic. But 529 is 23 squared. 23 times 23. And if you measure from the date that Servant of the People first aired on television to the date of the invasion of Ukraine, it was exactly 2,323 days. Just going to show you guys how this invasion, Russia into Ukraine, entirely scripted by the numbers. The same hidden hand behind both sides. Now, I don't usually do this, but I made a blog post with zero numerology in it today. And, just theorizing a little bit about what this war is really all about. And I noticed this tweet from this guy. I don't know who he is, but I thought he was worth singling out for a minute. And he put this tweet out showing all these Ukrainian children lying down, and he says, hey, they're worth the high gas prices. So, again, what they're doing is politicizing your opinions on everything, and this includes war. Now, of course we should be against war. Like, that should go without saying. I've always considered myself somewhat of a pacifist, and the idea that innocent people are getting hurt and killed is awful, but that should be assumed. However, we shouldn't be chastised for complaining about the economy when there's a war going on. Like, our economy shouldn't be crumbling when one dictator overseas decides to take actions that we saw coming all along, right? And this guy, he loves masks. He thinks you should get vaccinated. That's great. Now, remember, the media just came out and said, hey, cloth masks allow 90% of particles to go through. Of course, there's no reason whatsoever that they couldn't publish this story, 2 years ago before they ever told anybody to wear cloth masks as if they ever really helped. And, of course, we knew this all along. But, this is the frame of mind that a lot of the country is in. And you got to appreciate his name, Pavlovitz, right? Living in a fear state. Remember Pavlov's dogs were used to illustrate how animals can be conditioned using external stimuli. But, you see what's happening here, right? It's like, of course we stand with the Ukrainian people just as we stand with the Russian people. We don't want anybody getting bombed. But if I complain about the economy, especially amid a dollar that's already inflating like mad, now it's like we're not standing with the human beings. Like, we should be sucking it up and living rougher lives because of what's going on. So you kind of see the agenda here, right? It's about bringing the entire world down a little bit and using these crises, no matter where they are, no matter what they involve, to try and convince people that their standard of living should be dropping because of what's happening. All right, so that's all I got on this video. I still want to do a super stream, hopefully later today. If not, early tomorrow morning. So, yeah, stick around. Turn on notifications on if you don't on this channel. And we'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for jumping in. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.